Okay, so the Bucks are out. For the
Yes.
second game in a row, playoff Jimmy dragged the Heat back from the dead. It's the first time a number one seed has lost to a play-in team. Was this more legacy solidifying for Jimmy Butler or legacy damning for
All
Giannis?
right. Jimmy Butler in this series was almost as good as any player has ever been in any series. I know that sounds crazy, but when you consider the fact that the Heat were one of the lowest scoring teams in basketball in the regular season, they lost their second best scorer for the series in the first game of this series. They lost Victor Oladipo in the fourth game of this series, or the third or fourth game of this series. They were playing the number one seed with the previously unanimously accepted best player alive. And Jimmy Butler averaged 38, 6, and 5 on 60% from the field and 44% from three. It's unprecedented that Jimmy Butler in these last two, I'll just give you his numbers in each of the 5 games against the one seed Bucks, who were double-digit favorites last night and minus 1,200 favorites for the series. Game 1, 35-11, win. Game 2, 25 points and a loss. And then in the 3 straight wins, 30 points in game 3. Then Giannis comes back. The Bucks are on the brink. The Bucks are up 12 points midway through the fourth quarter of game 4. Jimmy, 56-9, and last night, 42-8. The Heat were down 16 in the fourth. He dragged them back. He forced overtime with a buzzer beater. He played 46 minutes. That is 98 points in consecutive playoff games, the second most in NBA history to Michael Jordan's 99 points back in the 93 postseason. Jimmy Butler took this team to the finals 3 years ago, last year game 7 Eastern Conference Finals, and now has upset the Bucks. All credit to Jimmy. He is a dominant playoff performer. He is a superstar. He is without question one of the top 10, maybe top 8 guys you would want for a postseason run. Now to the bigger story, which is the Bucks. This is not legacy defining for Giannis, but it goes on the resume. You were the 1 seed. You lost in round 1 in 5. And we'll talk big picture stuff with Giannis in a moment. But this game last night, the Heat deserve credit. Spo deserves credit. Jimmy obviously deserves credit. Also, I cannot remember in sports a time where a coach in real time panicked and froze more than we saw Mike Budenholzer last night. So, some context on the end of that game. The Bucks are up 2, right? Now, actually, let me back up a little. Well, they're up 1. They almost turned the ball over. Probably should have been a turnover. They call a foul on Kyle Lowry. The Heat challenge gets overturned, jump ball. The Bucks win the tip. And then Giannis, my guy, who struggled mightily from the free throw line last night, 10 of 23, 13 misses, was so nervous about shooting free throws, he tried to throw the ball away again. That then led to Drew Holiday's save, or Chris Middleton's save. Drew Holiday gets it. Drew Holiday goes 1 of 2 from the line. The Heat draw up a brilliant play. Butler catches it, tosses it in while falling backwards. It's now a tie game. There was half a second left, and the Bucks had a timeout. If you call timeout, you get to advance the ball to half court. Instead, Bud just stood there. They inbound the ball. They don't even get a shot off. That's a disaster. It can't happen. There is no reason not to call timeout there other than you were panicked. But the problem, even with the panic, is you have to know in the huddle before the Heat have their final possession. If they score, we are calling timeout. He must have thought if they score, there won't be enough time. So be it. It's still impossibly bad. Then at the end of the game, you don't get a shot off, and your season ends with the ball in Grayson Allen's hands. Grayson Allen, with him not taking a shot. Once again, there, the Bucks had 2 timeouts. Could have drawn something up. If you want to let them run in transition, so be it. But once you see the play has devolved to the point that Grayson Allen has the ball with your season on the line, you must call time out. I would not be surprised if Bud gets fired for this. I know he won a championship 2 years ago. Nick Nurse won a championship 3 years ago. He was let go this week. Frank Vogel won a championship. Well, hold on. So I guess Nick Nurse won a championship 4 years ago. He was fired this week. Frank Vogel won a championship 3 years ago. He was fired before the season. Bud won a championship 2 years ago. Tough times, man. Tough times. Now on Giannis and the legacy stuff. I have been saying, and I think smart people agree, that it is not a debate who the best player in the world is. It's Giannis. Dominant defensive player, unstoppable offensive force. And it has always irritated me when people are like, oh, he can't shoot. Because who gives a shit if he can't shoot when he's that effective? Super efficient. No one can stop him from getting to the basket. And last night, he damn near out of 40 and 20. So it's hard to lay it all at his feet. However, last night and in this series, his inability to create a shot and his free throw woes, which we saw him go 17 of 19 in a finals game to win the title and score 50, his free throw woes were so bad in this series that for the first time, his inability to shoot really cost them. And so we've got to wait and see how the rest of these playoffs finish out. And I obviously don't believe the Warriors are going to win the title. But if they do, I think Steph Curry gets to claim I'm the best player in the world. That was no super team last year. They won the title. If they win it again with Giannis in 2 straight years going out in second round and round 1, I think Steph might get the throne. If the Nuggets win the title, Jokic maybe has a claim. The point I am making is Giannis didn't have to win the title in order to keep best player alive as undeniably his. But going out in round 1 in 5, blowing back-to-back double-digit fourth-quarter leads against an 8-seeded Heat team that lost 1 play-in game to the Hawks and damn near lost a 2nd play-in game to the Bulls. Yikes, man. That's a tough one. I love the guy. And now everyone's talking about his post-game comments. Diorra, what's our question there?
So, what do you think about his comments about failure after the game?
So, he was asked by Eric Nem, I'm not sure, do you consider this season a failure? And he gave a very long, interesting answer, and he seemed to be very frustrated with the question. And one of the things he said was Michael Jordan played 15 years, won 6 titles, were 9 of those years failures. And he said, he is a great guy. I love Giannis. And he seemed genuine and earnest. Also, this season, by any fair definition, was a failure. It's not as reductive as there's 30 teams, 1 team wins the title, 29 teams don't, 29 teams failed. That's not what I'm saying. There are different levels of success or failure. So I would argue, let's take the Dallas Mavericks. Last year, the Mavericks did not win the title. They made it to the Western Conference Finals. Last year was a massive success for them, even though they didn't win the title. They overachieved somewhat. They went on a deep playoff run. This year, they didn't even make the playoffs. It's an unmitigated failure. The 04 Lakers made it all the way to the finals and then got routed in the finals. I think that season for them, it was the last year of Shaq and Kobe together. They had brought in Malone. They had brought in Peyton. They put all their eggs in that basket. For them, it was championship or bust. Anything short of a championship for that team would have been a failure. Last year, Celtics made it to the finals, lost, massive successful season. There's nuances to this. There is no nuance to this. You are the Vegas favorite. You are the number one seed. You have theoretically the best player in the world. He is back for game 4. You are up double digits in the fourth quarter. You lose. He is back for game 5. At home, you are up 16 in the fourth quarter. You lose. That is a failure. If I said, there's going to be a vote taken, best sports talk show in the world. I want First Things First to win it. And in the first round of the voting, I get routed by somebody's cable access stream show. That's a failure. There's a lot of athletes coming to Giannis's defense. Giannis is a great dude, one of my favorite players ever. And I understand what he's saying in theory. Every result this season that could have ended with them not winning the title would not have been, by definition, a failure, right? If they make the conference finals and Joel Embiid, the year he wins MVP, goes crazy and they knock out the Bucks and he's just better, I don't know that I'd call that failure. Disappointing, fell short of your hopes, but not a failure. Losing in round 1 as a 1 seed, I'm going to do this off the top of my head, but the only 1 seeds to lose to 8 seeds. The 94 Nuggets beat the Sonics in a best of 5. The 99 Knicks beat the Heat in the strike year or lockout year in a best of 5. I know the We Believe Warriors beat the Mavericks in 07. I know the Grizzlies beat the Spurs in 10 or 11. The Bulls lost as a 1 seed in a year that Derrick Rose blew out his knee. And I'm leaving 1 or 2 out. But it's only happened like 7 or 8 times. It is a failure. It doesn't mean you're a failure as a person, as a basketball player, as anything. Your season was a failure. And this to me, just sidebar before we get to the other stuff, this to me is where at times social media can turn into, Diorra, a bit of like groupthink, what Dan Le Batard would call Captain Easy stance. So this reporter says, was your season a failure? Giannis gives a thoughtful answer, and everyone, the ball starts rolling downhill on, that reporter's a clown, Giannis is the greatest. And everyone starts kind of parroting the same opinion. When I think privately, anyone that's a sports fan says, hey, would you consider this Bucks season when if you bet $100 on the Bucks to win this series, you would have won $7. That's how big of a favorite they were. And they lost in 5 to a Miami Heat team that lost Tyler Hero in game 1, Would you consider that a failure? Everyone would say yes, of course. So I love Giannis. Go ahead.
Nothing.
No, speak on it.
No, I was just gonna say you really can talk about the Bucks for an hour, huh?
Oh yeah, that's true. I said on my
He spent the entire timer talking about the Bucks.
It's one of the craziest. If you guys don't know what you were referring to, she heard me do my conference call for First Things First today, and we were talking about what's going to be in the show because there's so much to discuss. And I said I could talk about this Bucks game for 6 hours. I mean, there's things we haven't even gotten to, but yeah. I mean, it's a historic upset. And Giannis's comments were interesting, and Jimmy Butler's unbelievable. And it was out of this world. Hey, thanks for watching. Hit the subscribe button to get more from the show, and make sure to click the bell to get notified every time new content drops. Check out full episodes of What's Right wherever you get your podcasts, or just click the link in the description below.